Hello and welcome back to Perspectives, bringing you our daily dose of news and views we hope are relevant to you. Today, the dark hand of the RSS makes its moves in Canada once again, as the Hindu priest suspended after whipping up the violent Hindu mobs is surprisingly reinstated. However, their attempts to smear the Canadian border guard as a terrorist fail as the agency itself clears him. A familiar pattern, it seems. As Remembrance Day passes, we take another look at the huge military contribution Sikhs have made to the Canadian Armed Forces. And in Punjab, the Dal Khalsa speak out once again against the evil forces of Hindutva at play. Well, joining me as always for Perspectives is our very own correspondent in Canada, James Cousineau. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Angus, and good morning to our amazing viewers out there today. Thanks for joining us.
Indeed, and James and I together will be bringing you our perspectives on the daily news affecting the Sikh community across the world. And as always, we'll be taking a look at lots of your great comments which have been filling up below our videos. So thank you very much, as always, for those. So James, let's get the show on the road. What are you going to start us off with this morning?
The Canadian Border Services Agency has cleared their superintendent. This, again, was just proven to be more of the India propaganda, India false accusations, and their continued campaign to disparage the reputation of Canada and those who work for the Canadian government. Now, as people will recall, that last month we spoke about Mr. Sunny Singh Sidhu, stating that he was a CBS, Canadian Border Services Agency, for those unfamiliar with the acronym. He is a superintendent and was named by several news agencies out of India for being involved in terroristic activities. Now, he was the one that actually brought it to his superiors when he was informed by a co-worker of this story being circulated online. Now, the India media took it even further and posted his home address and an overhead map to his location. And that, of course, is just unbelievable that they've done this. And they have done this in the past where they have given out people's names, addresses, and statements that insinuated that they should be taken out. And we know what that means. And once in the past, it has actually happened that the person did turn up deceased 24 hours later. So the several questions remain, though, and that is more to do with whether or not the Canadian government did enough to protect him and to make sure that they stood firm to clear him quickly and completely within a reasonable time frame. And his lawyer clearly states that he thinks that the government of Canada has a lot more to do in terms of improving that system. Now, in terms of clearing him, they actually subjected him to 2 days of polygraph examinations. They examined his financial records. They examined all of his phone records. They examined, anything to do with his life. They went through it. They spoke with his family members, with his friends, with his co-workers. They did a very thorough investigation. Now, we came to know of this post that was put on YouTube by the Indian media last month. However, apparently, according to the reports, it actually came out over a year ago and disappeared and then reappeared. So this is not the first time that India has actually targeted this border services agent. And of course, they know well and clear that it is Narendra Modi's Hindutva radicalists that are targeting these individuals and the Narendra Modi-backed media that spreads this false narrative. Now, it's also important to know that he was accused by the India government of being involved in terroristic activities, including the death of Balwinder Singh Sandhu. And it should be noted that he was not even in India for several years when this happened. He was there several years prior, but he was there for a wedding. And of course, this is just another false narrative. Now, as I stated, he went through all of that background check. He went through all of this time. He was taken off of his regular duties and placed in a non-public area, so probably doing paperwork and pushing reports. But at the same time, this has an effect on him. It has an effect on his family, as well as his friends and co-workers. Now, when this report came out, there was also a widespread email that went throughout the CBSA through their internal email system, raising awareness to everyone about this, but they didn't give a context, and therefore it raised questions by others within the CBSA who didn't know him and know of his several decade-long history of being an amazing representative of Canada and being someone who is dedicated to the safety and security of our nation. So it really did have a large impact on him, and I'm sure that it will have an impact on him going forward with such false but serious accusations made against him by the foreign government of India. So again, he has been cleared. He has been reinstated back to his full duties. Now, with that, I just wanted to bring up one more point here that I touched on already, that the government has already said that it is a campaign that's ongoing by the India government. But again, I just wanted to scroll down here and bring out the incident that happened previously. And I'm just going to pull that up here, Angus. It's quite the story. I forgot to highlight it for myself. But regardless, it just confirms that the India media and government had previously posted the address and personal information of another Canadian, and within 24 hours, he had been assassinated as well. And that is one of the many cases, I believe, that the RCMP and the National Security Agency has been alluding to when they say that there are other cases going through the court systems, as well as continuing through through the investigation process involving potential links to Modi and his government, as well as the consul members that were kicked out of Canada recently. So it is good to see that they have cleared him, that they've made it very public to restore his name. But it still, I think, Angus, has far-reaching consequences for him in the fact that people will always look at him a bit different, I believe.
Yeah, let's look at this story from two angles. Firstly, is close up, close to the coalface, so to speak, and let's look at this story in detail. I mean, basically, this guy's life has been turned upside down by these false allegations. He's gone through a horrendous process of investigation. His family have got involved. His reputation is now in question. And people are always going to wonder, well, maybe it's true. So, of course, this guy has suffered an enormous amount from these false allegations. And they're really nasty. And it is really just evidence of India just deliberately interfering in so many people's lives overseas. I mean, India's got enough of its own problems on its own plate domestically. Why is it getting so involved overseas in other people's lives who actually have very little connection left with India now? Their lives have moved on. They're living new lives elsewhere. So again, it's just for this guy, it's a terrible story, and it's a sad indictment of what India are up to. Now, let's also then take another look at this story from a different angle, from a slightly more distant angle. Let's look at the more strategic elements of this and what actually is going on. Well, we do know what's going on here. This, of course, is the Indian intelligence agencies, the Hindutva forces, the RSS, once again, interfering overseas, targeting Sikhs living abroad because, again, they see the Sikh community as a huge threat to their existence and their dominance and control. So this, as I often refer to, this obsessive agenda to try and target overseas diaspora Sikhs, destroy their lives, destroy their reputations, all it's doing is, now in India's eyes, they think this strategy is working. They think, yeah, we'll throw enough dirt, some of it's going to stick, and it's just going to make the Sikh community globally look pretty negative in the world community's light. That's their take on this. That is their perspective. Now, in reality, what's actually happening here is over and over and over again, India are making all these allegations, these accusations against members of the Sikh community overseas, primarily in Canada, where, for example, we do know at least a dozen Khalistan campaigners have been labelled as terrorists by India, by RAW and by the Indian government. And supposedly evidence has been presented to the Canadian authorities, who have looked over this evidence and rejected it. They've done the same in the US, and I'm sure they've done the same here in the UK. So what is happening here is, again, this obsessive agenda to label anybody in the Sikh community that they feel they need to target as a terrorist. It's being rejected by all Western democracies who follow the normal process of law, who look at the evidence and realise that this evidence is fabricated, or it's flimsy, it is insufficient. Yeah. So, strategically speaking, India is not realising that this is a disaster. They are, in simple terms, crying wolf. When you cry wolf too often, people stop taking you seriously. And this is what India has done over and over again. They keep crying wolf, saying, these people are terrorists. And yet, the law enforcement authorities across the Western world look at the evidence and say, no, they are not terrorists. They're political dissenters. So the more that you do this, India, the more that the Western authorities are just going to say, look, we're just not even going to bother investigating now because you're wasting our time. We know they are fake accusations, or at least if they're not fake, that they're just not credible enough. You just don't have enough evidence. So stop it. So strategically speaking, I just find it incredible that there is a table somewhere in the RAW office in Delhi where a group of senior officers has sat around this table and worked out their strategy. I know, let's label these Khalistani activists as terrorists. What a great idea. And round the table they've slapped each other's back saying, great strategy. They roll this strategy out, and here we are all the way down the line, and this strategy is backfiring spectacularly. What on earth possessed these people in that office to come up with a strategy so childishly amateur that it's just failing miserably, that RAW is now looking to be a complete amateur outfit that is really failing to operate and actually failing to represent Indian interests properly. It is actually damaging India's national reputation. It is also actually acting pro-Khalistan. All it's doing is it's moving people towards the Khalistan movement. More and more people are flocking to the Khalistan banner as a result of India's actions and the actions of the Indian government. So silly little noisy stories like this, which have ruined or partially ruined the lives of just ordinary innocent Sikhs, all that's doing is it's pushing more and more people to the Khalistan banner, because more and more people are asking, what is this Khalistan thing? What is this transnational repression thing? And they're looking at it from an objective point of view, and they're realising it for what it is. It's just a really failing strategy from the Indian government that is now creating this big, it's actually creating more support for the Khalistan movement, James. So when I see stories like this, I say, fine. You know, it's all you're doing is you're doing the Khalistan movement's work for you. And again, in this story where it referred to when people's names have been highlighted by Hindutva and the Indian media, and then shortly afterwards they are assassinated, presumably by proxy criminal gangs. Again, this strategy is a apart from the fact it's criminal, it's working against India. It's actually a failing strategy. All you're doing is you're highlighting the fact that India is run by a rogue regime that is running out of control, that is actually damaging India on the world stage, that all it's doing is it's just highlighting the fact that it is a criminal organisation dressed up in fake democratic clothes, James.
Absolutely, Angus. And, it's something that the India government, I think, really relies on the lack of attention span of many people online, that they see the headlines and they see the bylines, but they don't actually read into the story. And I think that most people are now onto them and starting to actually read the content and realize how poorly written, how poorly executed, and how much bullshit is intertwined in these stories. I mean, today, for example, I saw an article that I was reading in one of Modi's newspapers there, and they had instead of putting Hardeep Singh Nijjar's name in an article, they actually put Mr. Poonan's name in the article, stating that he was the Canadian that was assassinated at the, it's just, sloppy, messy, but at the end of the day, they are criminally involved in all of these activities that have led to deaths on Canadian soil. So once more to Sunny Singh Sidhu and his family, on behalf of all regular Canadians, we thank you for your service guarding our borders. We are sorry that you and your family had to go through this, and we appreciate your dedication and your patience to get through something like this. So again, thank you to Sunny and his family. Now, as we are talking about protecting the Canadian borders and Canadian ways of life, Angus, that leads us into our next story. Now, there is a war museum that is in Calgary, Alberta, and they have set up a new section that honors the Sikh military members from past and honors the future members as well as current, because they are dedicated to keeping it modern, keeping it representative of the people serving in our military and the people who have done that in the past. So with that, of course, the Military Museum being very timely, being that we celebrated Remembrance Day just a few days ago here in Canada, where we honor all of those who have given everything for our country, who have given everything in the name of helping others around the globe, and to put their lives and literally their lives on the line in backing up what they believe in, and that's peace and protecting what they hold so cherish. So again, this is the Military Museum that is in Calgary. This is going to be a permanent part of the museum, which is great news because, Angus, you and I have discussed so many times on the show what an amazing contribution that Sikh members of the military have played, not only in Canada, but in the UK, in the US, and going all the way back to World War One, and all of the roles that they've played since then. Now, in this particular article, they were discussing this with Sergeant Harman Dhaliwal, who says he's proud to be a part of the growing museum's exhibit that highlights the relationship between the Sikh faith and military service in Canada. Now, he is a Calgarian who was born in Canada and is proud to serve as a part of the 3rd Battalion of Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, and he is now stationed in Edmonton, Alberta, but he served for 14 years, and 9 of which were in the reserves. He is served in Poland. He has done humanitarian aid projects in Poland for the refugees there from Ukraine and in Latvia. So he has worked with NATO. He has worked on the lines with Canadians. In the reserves, he would have helped within Canada for natural disasters, fires, and all of these different things. So he is someone that, as a Canadian, we are very proud of, to see fellow Canadians that are standing their ground and protecting our borders and our history, our culture, and our future. Now, Dhaliwal has said that it's great to honor, that it's a great honor to have these stories, including his own, at the Military Museum in his hometown, being from that area. It means a lot. I always encourage people from the faith to definitely join. There's just countless opportunities, countless different ways you can serve. But I also really like that he added down here that a lot of times people think that, you join the army, you get a gun in your hand and you go do the business. But there are so many other aspects. And he goes on to discuss how the Sikh military members share not only the goals and the ambitions of the military, but how that overlaps with their beliefs and their customs being Sikh, to stand up for those in need, to protect those who are at a risk of oppression by, including India, but foreign governments, and how they are able to step in and help people in need, such as when the war broke out in Ukraine. They were there as a part of NATO in the surrounding countries, such as Latvia, Poland, and such, to help to feed those people, to shelter those people, to clothe those people, and to really make sure that they made a safe passage on to somewhere where they could, I would say, move on with their lives, but they can't. They just can't do that. But to have the generosity, the kindness, and the support of the military members and the volunteers just went a long way to really help all of those who were in need in such a desperate time, Angus. So again, our hats are tipped to the men, women of the Canadian Forces, and for all of our Sikh military members, both past and present, because without the brave men and women of our armed forces, we would have no future, Angus.
Absolutely, and I'm always the first to stand up and salute our Sikh warriors who have served so fabulously over many years in the armed forces. And it's almost really a sort of an element of pride. I mean, we talk about the British Empire and its impact on the subcontinent. And quite often, I mean, most British people are aware of the story of the Gurkhas. And the Gurkhas is actually a very similar story where the British Army during the Empire days came up against the Gurkhas in battle, and the Gurkhas fought so courageously that they then subsequently invited the Gurkhas to join the British Army. Now, most British people are aware of that story, but so few British people are aware that it's actually exactly the same story with the Sikh community. And it's a shame. This is, I think, there is a real vacuum of education here where we do need to get this story out to a wider audience to make certainly people in the UK and maybe across the Western world a bit more aware of the story of the Sikh community and how it got involved in the armed forces in the first place. And it's when we look back at the British Empire when it came up against the Sikh Empire and those incredible battles, those hugely courageous soldiers, particularly from the Sikh side, who stormed into battle and impressed the British Army so deeply that likewise they were invited as a badge of honour, saying, please come and join our ranks because we respect you as fellow heroes, basically. So it's almost a badge of pride as a British person to say it is an absolute honour to have the Sikhs serving in the British Army, and they have served with absolute distinction since the day they started in the British Army. And so when we have things like Remembrance Day and the massive sacrifice that the Sikh community have given in the armed forces, it is disproportionately, really, their contribution is disproportionate to their numbers. And likewise, even for Indian independence, the Sikh community, their contribution to the independence and the battles, the physical blood spilt for Indian independence, they of course took a disproportionate level of contribution to Indian independence. So wherever the Sikhs have been involved, they have been disproportionately represented in a positive manner, primarily down to their genes. They are this warrior race, and it obviously continues to this very day. So James, yeah, I'm always very happy and very proud to cover these stories of Sikh soldiers who've contributed so massively to the armed forces around the world.
Absolutely, Angus, and I thought I would allow Sergeant Dollywald to give us the last word on this with a quick video that he did.
It was actually a promise I made my grandfather on his deathbed. I took that promise very seriously and joined, and I haven't regretted it yet. My name's Sergeant Harmon Dollywall. I am currently with 3rd Battalion, Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry. I'm an infanteer. I was born and raised actually here in Calgary, Alberta. I love what I do. For me personally and for like our family, it's closely intertwined to our faith. Being an individual that's coming from a Sikh background, the military service and Sikh principles and ethos kind of intertwined very closely. So it actually goes back quite a significant depth in history in that, you know, our 6th Guru, Guru Gobind Singh Ji, was the primary person who introduced like that martial tradition. And that like during that time there was a lot of political tyranny and oppression, and so they stood up saying that, like, you know, a Sikh individual is one that stands for righteousness and truthfulness, and that they will fight that oppression with the appropriate amount of force.
Yeah, and as a fellow light infantry, I served in the light infantry in the British Army as well, and I doff my beret to that soldier, so well done to him. Right, James, let's move on to my first story. And again, we're going to return to this violence, this Hindu mob violence in Canada that happened last week. And I just want to follow through one thread of a story which has emerged in the aftermath of all this. And again, it's just, I think it beautifully highlights the hidden hand of the RSS and Hindutva and what's clearly going on behind the scenes in terms of the manipulation of events, the manipulation of the narrative related to this. Now, you will recall that at the time when this violence kicked off, that the local mayor, Patrick Brown, came in very quickly and very publicly and stamped down on it as a response to both sides of the argument, in simple terms, came out publicly with press releases. Both the local Gurdwara Council and the local Hindu organisation, Hindu Sabha, both came out condemning the violence very quickly, as rightly they should do, because again, this violence didn't stem from ordinary Hindus and Sikhs. It stemmed from agents provocateurs coming from the Hindutva side. And so, of course, both organisations just immediately condemned it and said, look, no, this is not what we stand for. And likewise, the local mayor said, no, thank you to both these organisations for saying the right thing. And all of us are united in standing up against this violence. And likewise, we all know where it's coming from. Now, at that time, the Hindu Sabha said that, and in their press release, they said, due to the controversial involvement of Hindu Sabha priest Rajinder Parsad with the non-permitted protesters at Hindu Sabha premises on the 3rd of November, the Hindu Sabha is suspending Rajinder Parsad with immediate effect. Now, well done to them. They stamped down immediately on this local priest who was seen publicly whipping up the mobs. And of course, the organisation was publicly saluted for taking that swift action. So, along comes the 7th of November, the next press release from the Hindu Sabha. Hindu Sabha did not authorise or permit priest Rajinder Parsad to engage in the activities which recently occurred. Hindu Sabha had no prior knowledge of his involvement in these activities. Based on preliminary input, priest Rajinder Parsad was suspended. As a result of further review, we have now reinstated priest Rajinder Parsad to his duties and responsibilities at Hindu Sabha. Hindu Sabha remains committed to fostering unity and peaceful coexistence within our diverse Canadian society. Well, it turns out that this priest who was seen with a megaphone ranting at the Hindu mobs and whipping them up, well, it appears that he's been reinstated after some so-called investigation. And the Hindu Sabha, as it claims, is committed to fostering unity and peaceful coexistence, despite this gentleman, this representative, whipping up the Hindu mobs. So it clearly seems that something has gone on behind the scenes to reinstate this gentleman. And the Sikh Federation themselves have jumped on this immediately, and they've actually posted up on social media their own take on this. And they said, as the mayor indicated, it was right for the Hindu Sabha Mandir to suspend this priest on the 5th of November for what they call spreading violent rhetoric. The words at the time of the mayor, spreading violent rhetoric. He has, however, within a few days been reinstated by the Mandir management, and as the Sikh Federation point out, who have clearly been put under pressure and cleared of any wrongdoing. Peel Police are duty-bound to get this video translated of Pundit Rajinder Parsad and other videos that they will have access to of those that spoke and committed offences. The pundit is in a position of responsibility. He has clearly incited violence in this video and encouraged the killing of opponents. He should immediately be arrested and charged with relevant offences. So the Sikh Federation have actually said, look, you know, you can't just reinstate this guy. Clearly there's something going on behind the scenes, implying again that the hidden hand of the RSS has actually pressured the local Mandir, saying, no, you've got to reinstate this guy. We've got to whitewash him of any wrongdoing, because otherwise it's looking too bad for the local Hindu population. Well, as the Sikh Federation have pointed out, look, Peel Police, you're now actively digging up all these videos of what went on during this violence. Take a look at this video, and I'll play you the actual video. And here he is in action.
आज समय वो आ गया है जब आज हम लोगों को अपने बारे में नहीं, अपने आने वाली संतति के बारे में सोचना पड़ेगा। सबको एक होना पड़ेगा। हम किसी का विरोध नहीं करते हैं, लेकिन कोई हमारा विरोध करेगा तो मार देंगे। चलो भाई, थैंक यू कर दो सबको। अब आपके सामने हमारे मंदिर के प्रधान जी दो शब्द कहेंगे और आप लोग
भाई वो स्पीकर के ऊपर ही खड़ा है उतर गया इसकी कैसे रहेगी पुलिस वाला सबकी देगी
Now, I don't speak Hindi, but I don't need to know what's going on there. Clearly, that gentleman with the megaphone is whipping up that mob. You can see the anger rising. And he's chanting, he's getting the mob to chant. This is an age-old tactic. This is what they do. This is what agents provocateurs do to whip up the anger of the mob, to get them emotionally charged, to get them to go out there and cause riots, basically. Now, in steps the Hindu Forum of Canada. It calls itself a not-for-profit organisation founded by passionate individuals seeking to serve the Hindu and Greater Canadian community. Now, the Hindu Forum Canada is clearly another RSS mouthpiece, and one wonders where their funding comes from. I think we can guess again. Now, they've been all over social media, particularly around these events, and they're always spouting out pro-India, pro-Hindutva rhetoric on their website. Now, when this priest was suspended, they waded in with a very staunch defence when he was immediately reinstated. And they said, the Hindu Forum Canada is deeply disturbed by the recent misinterpretation of events surrounding a peaceful protest at a temple, where the words of a respected priest have been unfairly distorted to project a narrative of incitement and violence. The priest's message was clear, heartfelt and devoid of any hostility. Really? That's not what I saw on the video. He stated, listen, today the time has arrived. Today that time has arrived when we must think not for ourselves but for our future generations. We will have to be united. We will not oppose anyone, but if anyone opposes us, then blank. Before he could finish, the priest was interrupted and different voices from the crowd filled in the blanks with their own words. This interruption has been wrongly interpreted as incitement. So, and then it continues on about Hindus were gathered peacefully within their place of worship, blah, blah, blah. This act singles out the Hindu community, labelling their peaceful gatherings as violent, while similar assemblies by other communities are celebrated as their right to free expression. So now this is so utterly transparent. This is just utter propaganda. Basically, coming out with words of, it was clear, it was heartfelt, it was devoid of any hostility. I'm sorry, but I don't even need to speak Hindi to see the absolute whipping up of the mob there. This was violent, inciting of hatred and violence. It was very obvious what was going on. And more importantly, as somebody actually commented on that very post, they said, this strategy of leaving blank spaces and letting the crowd finish so that the speaker can get away is the exact modus operandi of Modi and company. And this person gives an example in India of where exactly the same modus operandi, the same method is used so that the speaker themselves can't be actually labelled as inciting hatred and violence using their words, is that they will only say part of a sentence, but then they will encourage the crowd to finish it. And here's another example of this in India, of exactly the same tactic. So there you go, another example of how these people operate. Now, technically, they can't be accused of using hatred-inspiring words. All they're doing is they're actually encouraging the audience. They're whipping up the audience to respond. And in that case, the chant was to kill, apparently, according to this person. Anybody who speaks Hindi can maybe clarify that. But that, again, was a BJP rally. And that is how these people operate. And then, to add salt into the wound, the Hindu Canadian Foundation finished this off by saying, basic human rights are foundational and apply to every individual, regardless of ethnicity, religion or origin. For Hindu Canadians, these rights include the freedom to practice and express their faith, contribute to society, etc., etc. The rising narrative of associating Hindu Canadians with pro-Indian sentiment is a cause for concern. This association, largely fueled by the Khalistani ecosystem, unfairly characterises Hindu Canadians as politically motivated, sidelining their rightful position as active law-abiding citizens who contribute meaningfully, etc., etc. These narratives often paint a distorted picture of an entire community, leading to unjust stereotypes and social tension, which infringes on the basic rights to freedom of association, religious expression, and peaceful coexistence. Oh, this post drips with hypocrisy and irony. What do you think the Sikh community have felt like for years, if not decades, that their basic human rights are not being allowed to express their simple existence? You talk about basic human rights, their freedom to express their ethnicity, religion, and their origin, etc., etc. And yet it's twisted around saying that it's the Hindu Canadians that are being targeted, that are being painted as a community that's not free to express itself, etc., etc. And yet, look at your beloved India, where unfortunately the Sikh community is not granted these basic human rights of expression, etc., etc. So again, this Hindu Canadian Foundation is just, it is a risible mouthpiece of RSS propaganda that is wading in, trying to manipulate the events of what happened, is cherry picking all these little pieces of information, spinning up this whole new narrative, saying the Hindus community was a victim in all this. The Hindu community who were out there armed to the teeth and rampaging through the streets, attacking Khalistani protesters, that they were the victims. They were the innocent victims in this whole situation. But this is how the RSS works. And going back to the message that James and I have been impressing upon for days since this violence, the RSS are looking for material to use to twist in these narratives. If you gift material to Hindutva, they will use it and they will spin it to maximum effect. Let me give you one final example of how, and I labelled yesterday's show the Hindutva trap. Let me show you how some local Sikhs fell into the Hindutva trap. So you see what's going on there. Some Khalistan protesters are wading in to the Hindus with their flags. Now, on the face of it, this is horrifying. Come on, guys, what are you doing? This is clear criminal activity. This is really a mistake, a bad mistake from the Khalistan protesters. But let me now temper that with looking at what's actually going on here. Clearly, those guys were standing outside the gates peacefully with their flags. That was fine. That was good protesting. That is democracy in action. What's clearly happened is those guys, those Hindu guys who are being attacked there, they've clearly waded in and provoked those Khalistan protesters. Clearly, this video has cut out all that. This video that's come from Hindutva is only showing the reaction. They are not showing the provocation. So clearly before this video, there was probably a whole series of events of those Hindus going into the Khalistanis and provoking them, probably with violence. They're probably wading in and throwing fists and stuff. But that's been cut out of this video. All this video is showing is these guys, the Khalistanis, reacting, responding in quite a violent manner, but they could argue it was in a defensive manner, but it doesn't matter. This is all that's being shown on video. This is being circulated across social media. This is how you lose the argument. So once again, all I'm going to do is come back to all the Khalistani protesters, and hopefully this message just infiltrates back through the movement. Just don't do this, guys. It doesn't matter what the propagation is. I know that you're masculine, you're full of testosterone. This is what men do, but do not fall for the Hindutva trap. This is a clear evidence of a Hindutva trap. You are provoked, you react angrily, and now this is all over social media. This undermines the message, it undermines the reputation, it undermines the credibility of the message. So once again, all I'm doing is saying, please guys, when you are out there, do not fall into the trap. Do not get provoked. Stand there, stand your ground, smile at them. A smile is humongously disarming. Doesn't matter what these guys do to you. You stand there and smile, it dissolves their resolve. So please do not react violently. That is my simple message, James.
Absolutely, Angus. And, we know that some of the crowd was encouraging an RSS presence in Canada. We know that some of the crowd was encouraging the extinction of not only Sikhs, but also of Muslims and Christians in India and here in Canada. So, I mean, there was a lot of emotion, and I can understand that. There were some individuals offering, swords to those who wanted to go and attack the Gurdwara and things to that nature that were going on. So the frustration is real. I get it, but you've got to take a hold of your emotion and your reaction. And, there's a lot of questions still up in the air that we need answers to. Some of those including even the Jeff Lal of Brampton, who is running for the nomination as a part of the Canadian Conservative Party. And he was there in the crowd shaking hands and such as that went on. And he has been also stated that he's running for the nomination because he wants to reduce violence in the community, while he's also blaming immigration for the rise of violence and crime in the community of Brampton. So, I mean, he's just really going all over the map to try and please everybody, but it's really contradicting his own statements. And he himself is an immigrant from Fiji. So, he really has to take a look in the mirror and realize that is he feeding the line of the Hindutva radicals, or is he actually feeding a line from his own heart and his own beliefs? I really think the answer is clear there, Angus.
Yeah, I mean, there is a clear war underway, and it's a dirty war. Hindutva are playing really dirty on this. They're not afraid to use every tactics that they can lay their hands on. And the Khalistan movement, all you have to do is just play it by the book, play it by the rule book. You just have to stand firm, play it democratically by the rule of law, and you will win this war. It might take time, but you will win. Don't fall for these dirty tactics. It's so simple to say. I know it's hard to do, but just all you have to do is just play a straight bat on this, and you will win this war. Okay,
Absolutely.
and so for my second story, I'm going to move across the Punjab again, and this is Dal Khalsa, who, again, likewise, are recognising this dirty war for what it is, but it is really positive to report that the Sikh community is uniting globally. It is actually recognising that the only way it is going to win this war is to expel this infiltration from the RSS, is to expel these dirty tactics that are trying to really fragment and really exploit the cracks in the Sikh community. So unification is the key word here. And the Dal Khalsa are getting together in Punjab in the near future to talk about this. And what they've actually announced is they've decided to hold a convention to assess the current national and international situation and challenges being faced by the Sikh nation the world over. So they're taking a very global perspective on this. And what they're looking at to do is to formulate a new strategy to deal with those challenges and take the Sikh struggle to what it calls its logical conclusion. We all know what that logical conclusion is. So they've got their eye on the prize, the big prize of Khalistan here. So the convention will be held on the 5th of December at Moga, in which the parties actively working on Panthic turf will be invited. So the Sikh organisation extended congratulations to President Donald Trump on his re-election, and they said that we hope and expect that Mr. Trump will curtail and convince his Indian counterpart, Narendra Modi, to put a break and withdraw extrajudicial and extraterritorial operations targeting the Khalistan activists, said the leaders of the organisation. Now, the party's working president, Paranjit Singh Mand, the Political Affairs Secretary, Kanwar Pal Singh, and General Secretary, Paranjit Singh Tandar, said that the violent transnational repression policy to target pro-freedom Sikhs by extrajudicial methods in place, despite it being exposed at international level and, of course, condemned by the Five Eyes, it is still going on and it has to stop. And reiterating the importance of the convention, Mand said the Sikhs as a community will have to take a decision as to how long they will continue to tolerate the targeted killing of Sikhs in the Punjab and abroad, how long that they will allow the Indian rulers to divide the people of Punjab in the name of religion, caste and race. Now, referring to the clash between Sikhs and pro-India activists that we've just been talking about, Kanwarpal Singh said the scuffle was indeed twisted by the Indian leadership, including Narendra Modi, with a design to portray that Sikhs were anti-Hindus, aimed to widening the gap between Hindus and Sikhs, but the intelligence section of both Hindus and Sikhs intervened in time to prevent the government's mischief game plan to succeed, as they call it. So clearly, again, they are recognising what is going on here. They're seeing, it's very clear that ordinary Hindus and Sikhs do not want this. They do not believe in this violence, that they have coexisted quite peacefully for many years, that this is being whipped up by a very small number of activists, agents provocateurs, who are in the payroll of Hindutva, basically. And he continued to say, Kanwarpal Singh said, those handful of Sikhs who protested yesterday outside the Canadian embassy at Delhi were stooges of Modi dispensation and are on the payroll of agencies. They were giving a bad name to the Sikh community. And again, going back to these protests that I reported on yesterday, clearly, and actually some of our commenters have even highlighted this very fact, they were fake Sikhs, basically. They were, as the Dal Khalsa refers to, they were paid stooges of Narendra Modi, which by that read the RSS and Hindutva. And he also said that exactly 1 month after the victory of the farmers' movement, the nefarious attempt by India's deep state to desecrate the holiest place of Sikhs, the Darbar Sahib, inflicted pain and wounds on the Sikh conscience. The incident made us understand that in this Hindu India, neither the religion of the Sikhs was safe, nor the existence and identity of Sikhs was safe. He said that the ban on wearing the kirpan by Amritdhari Sikhs at the airport was also a sign of the same. The leaders were of the view that this illegal notice of Civil Aviation Ministry is a repeat of the 2022 notice, which was withdrawn after Sikhs objected to it. It has been issued again, and to our mind it's a fallout of India-Canadian standoff to which Sikhs are a main party. Government is playing cheap tactics to force Sikhs to beg pardon, to beg before them for every right, they said. Commenting on the traditional reactions of the Sikh leadership, he said that whenever the government of Delhi bullies or abuses the Sikhs religiously, culturally, politically or economically, the leaders of the Sikh organisations say that this incident has made the Sikhs realise that they were slaves in India. How long has that taken? I think they've realised that for a long time. He questioned those Sikh leaders who are at the helm of affairs that how long will Sikhs continue to tolerate the insult of Guru Granth Sahib Ji and Guru Panth in this country. So very strong, powerful words from the Dal Khalsa. I actually didn't realise. I need to research this actually, James. We'll take a look at this. The Civil Aviation Ministry apparently is repeating its 2022 notice about wearing the kirpan. The kirpan is being banned, it looks like, at airports. So I'll have to research that. I'm assuming that is referring to Indian airports. If that is true, if you knew about this in the audience, let us know about this. I'll take a look at that. But otherwise, yeah, this James, these are very strong words coming from the Dal Khalsa. Once again, they're saying, look, we need to unite. We need to take a look at what's going on, not just in the Punjab, but globally. And again, I think this is a very encouraging sign that all these Sikh organisations are talking globally now. They are collaborating globally. They are coordinating globally, because the only way that Khalistan is going to happen is if all these organisations do talk. And we do know that the Sikh Federation is now forming itself amongst certainly the Five Eyes nations. The Sikh Federation Canada is established now and will be established in, I think, 3 other locations geographically. Likewise, they are coordinating, as Dabinderjit Singh, one of the key voices in the organisation, told me directly. He said that there is what he calls a dotted line to the organisations within the Punjab. Of course, it can't be a solid line because they are at risk, of course, under Modi's regime. If they stick their heads above the parapet too loudly, that they will be stamped down on and that likely find themselves in jail. But they are, behind the scenes, collaborating with the Dal Khalsa and these other organisations to coordinate the Sikh message, to unite the Sikh message, and that is the way that this war will be won once again, is that these RSS infiltrations will be rejected and expelled, that this poison, this cancer coming from the RSS will be surgically removed, and that the purity of the Sikh message will be maintained within these organisations, and this is what will drive the organisation united forward to Khalistan, James.
Absolutely, Angus, and it just really shows it goes to reiterate what we've been saying, is that regardless as to the Sikh community, whether they are pro or against Khalistan, the actions of the India government, the India propaganda, the media, and the RSS are, going against the safety and security of all Sikhs worldwide. So it's not just that they are focused in on the Khalistan movement, they are focused in on Sikhs and other minorities within India and outside.
Absolutely. Couldn't put it better myself. So, James, let us now move on as time marches on to our comments section. And yes, we both spotted this. Yesterday, our show, we posted up a thumbnail to highlight the show, and I must express my enormous apologies. And this forms part of me and James learning on this steep learning curve about the culture and identity of the Sikh community, the whole religion. We are on this really fascinating learning curve. And the thumbnail that we posted up, rather stupidly, had the Kandar symbol on the calf. Actually, it was the lower calf of somebody's leg falling into the Hindu man trap. And PJ 3359 very kindly pointed out to us, no, this was wrong. This actually was a bit of a cultural insult. And my apologies on our behalf for this. We got it wrong. Thank you for pointing out. As you rightly said, people may object to a picture of the Kandar on the feet because of religious reasons and religious sensitivities. Absolutely right. Thank you so much for pointing that out. If we get things wrong, do not be afraid to point it out in the comments or even send us an email directly at message@satellitestv.com. Let us know if we make a silly cultural mistake like that. It is all part of James and I learning what's what and what it's all about. And hopefully the new thumbnail has corrected that. So thank you, PJ, for pointing that out. And thank you for helping James and I on this great learning journey of the wonders of Sikhi. So thank you for that. Right, let us move on to more comments. And, it rolls on. The thunder rolls on again about the establishment of Khalistan. And we had another couple of great comments. And it's been a real magnet for Hindutva and the anti-Khalistan movement. Really enjoyed wading in on this. And we had Shiva N. Sharaj saying, yeah, good nightfall dreams. We, the Hindus of Punjab, will never live under this dream. Idiot project of Khalistan, this empty land, and its Khalistani empty brainless thugs. Well, thank you for that intelligent remark, Shiva. And all I would say is, look, you're saying that the Hindus of Punjab wouldn't never live under this Khalistan flag. Well, the simple answer is you don't have to. This is what democracy is all about. It's called the freedom of choice. If Khalistan, or should I say when Khalistan happens, as a Hindu in Khalistan, you have the absolute choice to remain or to move over the border into India. You don't have to stay. This is what it's all about. And if you don't like the idea, you vote against it. That's what democracy is all about. But what you fail to also understand is what about the Sikhs of the Punjab are living under the Indian flag reluctantly. They don't want to be under the Indian flag. That's why they're arguing and campaigning for Khalistan. And they have no choice in this matter, this so-called democracy. They don't have a choice. But unlike when Khalistan happens, you will have a choice. That is what true democracy is all about, James, is it not?
Absolutely, Angus, and it's something that we are proud to be in areas where we get to experience and live democratically. So yeah, that's what it's supposed to be about.
Indeed. So thank you, Shivan Sharaj, for your comment. And it's good sport and great for us to have a bit of a chat about that. So thanks for pointing that out. And I love this one. Choo Choo the Parrot. Now, this is actually well named because you're parroting. That's repeating a tired old accusation. Khalistan are Pakistan-backed goons. Well, actually, no, they're not. And I'm not going to bother ranting for another 10 minutes again about this same old argument. It is not backed by Pakistan. It might be supported in theory. It might align with Pakistan because, yeah, Pakistan probably, we all know Pakistan has animosity towards India, but it is not a Pakistan operation. The Khalistan movement has existed even before Pakistan existed. So, get your head around this concept, Choo Choo the Parrot. The Khalistan whole ideology even precedes Pakistan. It is all about Sikh sovereignty. It goes back to the Sikh empire of the 19th century. That is how old it is. So unfortunately, it's a tired old argument, and I'm not even going to bother arguing about it, even though I've just argued about it for another 2 minutes. So hopefully, Choo-Choo the Parrot, you get the message. Now, World 22 IDE, this is a powerful comment. Now, talks a lot about Hindus, and again, this is highlighting the fact that the Hindu majority do have this, what he calls, or this person calls, a genocidal pulse in their blood. And this person's saying it's actually ingrained in just the Hindu ideology, in Hindu genes almost. And for example, this person points out, look, the genocide in 1984, despite that, is that Congress then won a thumping majority of 400 seats in the following elections, even after the genocide. So what you're saying is that the Hindus are absolutely, totally behind this whole concept of genocides against the Sikhs. And you even point out that they chant about Hindu Rashtra, but if you stand up for Khalistan, you'll then get a genocidal threats of rape and genocide, etc. And they even talk about how they'll kill their kids in front of you. So again, what this person's saying is that it's all very well if you're a Hindu to campaign and shout for a Hindu Rashtra, but God forbid a Sikh stands up and say, we want a Sikh Khalistan. If you do that, then the Hindus turn on you and pour genocide upon you. Again, it's pointing out this Hindu hypocrisy. And then you talk again about some pretty awful, and I won't repeat them because, again, I find them very upsetting, about what the Hindus got up to, the Hindu violent mobs got up to in the genocides. Likewise, in Gujarat in 2002, Narendra Modi, once again, the butcher of Gujarat, was responsible for a massive Muslim massacre. And again, you point out some pretty horrendous acts, which I won't repeat. But yeah, James, I think this comment points out very clearly, look, that ingrained within the Hindu ideology is this pro-genocide streak. It's actually pointing out that it's actually ingrained in the whole Hindu ethos.
Absolutely, it's it's a systemic issue that's going back decades and generations, and it's going to take another generation or two to be able to weed this out and get this corrected. But if we don't start now, when is it going to end?
Indeed. I'll point out the caveat that James and I always come out with. We cannot paint all Hindus with the same brush. Of course, the majority of Hindus are peace-loving, normal, decent people. Unfortunately, they are whipped up by, it's the Hindutva RSS Brahmanical control, and of course the caste system, which maintains this dreadful ideology. Okay, let me check, says, bros, you guys need to understand one thing only, that the Brahmanical mindset, people kill the Buddhist religion in India. Research it. It's the same way that the killing the Sikh religion in India. The pattern is the same. I must confess, I've not looked into this, James. I don't know if you have, but we need to take a look at what happened. Somebody else has pointed this out, that actually they've driven out the Buddhist religion. And I'm assuming, again, it's the Brahmins, again, who've driven out the Buddhist religion in India. And apparently they're using the same sort of tactics to try and drive out the Sikh religion, James. This is something we're going to have to look at.
Yeah, that's definitely something of interest that we'll have to look at, and something that I have not looked at in the past. So definitely.
So let me check. Thank you for that comment. Let me check. And likewise, I will check. Indeed. Let me check on that. We'll take a look at that. Human points out, all Indian media is running anti-NATO narrative in social media with misinformation. Yeah, I've not noticed this, but this is interesting that you have noticed this, but it doesn't surprise me because, of course, there is this recent increasing alignment with the BRICS economy, James. This is quite concerning, is that Narendra Modi is buddying up to Putin. There seems to be a thawing of the tensions with Xi Jinping in China, and, of course, they're aligning with Iran and other nations. And yeah, it doesn't surprise me that they're running this anti-NATO rhetoric. India is moving away from NATO. It is moving away from Western democracies. And I think the people of India need to wake up, guys. Is this really the direction you want your so-called democracy going in? Because you're the only democracy, so-called democracy, that sits in the BRICS economies. The only democracy. Doesn't that send out alarm bells? Doesn't that hoist up red flags? Do you not think you should be waking up to the fact that something is not quite right here, James?
Yeah, absolutely. And with the current political situation in the U.S., with the threats of the U.S. pulling out of NATO, I mean, this is a time for the India media to support Russia's narrative and really push that for distrust and for people to turn against NATO right now.
And the Jim Germany comes out with a great comment. Union States of India, once Punjab becomes free of this union, this colonial union, that the rest of the other states within India will also follow the Punjab, and therefore it would form an open market for business without any restrictions for the world. This is a really interesting comment, and I would refer back to one of my podcasts I did with an Austrian politician, and Gunther. Oh, his surname escapes me. It'll come back to me. I did a really fascinating interview with an Austrian politician, an activist. He actually, in the whole ethos, the whole discussion revolved around the breakup of India, and he'd actually Gunther Fehlinger, that's his name. He'd actually posited across social media that he believed that India would break up, and he actually said in our discussion that what India would become, and this would be a very beneficial thing, is that India will break up into its constituent parts, obviously including Khalistan and other areas, and that they would operate under a federal, coordinated landscape in much the same way that the European Union operates. The European Union is made up of different sovereign nations that are working all together under one economic infrastructure, and it works very successfully. And what Gunther said is that India should follow this same example, and probably will follow this same example, where when it breaks up, it will then form this federation of independent states that will all work together in an infrastructural union, in an economical union, that will then work very successfully. I think this is a great idea. I think this is the future of India, and this is what will propel India into great things in the future, James.
I think the European Union model is perfect. I can't believe that it looks like such a simple solution for such a complex issue.
Ironically, yeah, once India breaks free from Brahmanical control, it will actually soar to great heights. It really will be a massive success. It will, as a union, become a future superpower. That, to me, is the positive future of India once it breaks free of that Brahmanical control, which at the moment is resisting it. I only need to refer you back to the economics we talked about yesterday of India. So Amrik Singh says, I'm a bit worried about India if it could survive after Khalistan is established. I think this is slightly what we call tongue-in-cheek. Yeah, once Khalistan happens, I think India is in trouble because it will fall apart. And I think, refer back to the previous comment, actually, in fact, ironically, I think what will happen is that the other states will become independent, and they will become their own little miniature powerhouses of economics and commerce, and they will all work together, and I think India has a great future. So actually, Amrit, a great comment, and I would refer likewise to the previous comment. Samit says, why are my comments being deleted here? Yeah, back to the same old, James. I think we've been down this road before.
Yeah, but we also haven't seen the comments, so...
Sadly. I'd remind people that quite often comments do get filtered out automatically by YouTube. I do always go back in and always approve comments that have been automatically filtered out, except for the very, very, very rude ones. But even the very rude ones I will approve, despite that they are extraordinarily critical. But I don't mind. We're all about free speech here. But what it means is sometimes if your comment is filtered out, it might be a day or two before I find it to approve it. So just be patient. If it doesn't appear after a day or two, then you know it has been deleted by somebody who shouldn't be deleting comments. Right, final comments, James. Sharon Singh says, 100% the focus is free Khalistan. Sikhs like India, but Sikhs love Khalistan. Important point here. Sikhs do love India. There's no reason why the Sikh community doesn't love India. But what it doesn't like is the Brahmanical control, the Brahmins, the RSS. That's what they don't like. But Sikhs do still love India. Sikhs love everybody. They treat everybody as equals. That is the philosophy of Sikhi. But they love Khalistan more. That's the most important thing. India is playing as a prostitute, the BRICS, China, now Trump. Exactly. India always acts in what it believes is in the interest of itself, of India. In fact, it's the interest of the Brahmanical rule. So Sharon, you're absolutely right. I think there's a lot of big points raised in one very simple sentence there, James.
Absolutely, Angus, and I don't think I can say it better myself.
And NSL comes out with a welcome, NSL, to our channel. I think you're new to the channel. Thank you for joining us. And this is your second comment. What you said is absolutely amazing content. Well, thank you so much for that. This channel needs an update and quickly report on world news as well as Sikh causes. And then you said chess game or something like that. I did chuckle. I'm not quite sure if you want us to report on chess, the world of chess, which I don't know we know much about, unfortunately. But interesting that you reckon we should report on world news. We should broaden our remit on the channel and report on world news, much as we would love to. And in fact, actually, in the very, very early days of satellite TV, I did do a daily world news show. I loved doing it. We did cover a lot of world events. I loved it. It was fascinating. It did seem to be well received. But we decided, and certainly the management of satellite decided, look, we need to focus on the Sikh community. This is what we're about. This is our niche. And it seems to be doing very well. And I mean, thank you for your comment. Thank you for your suggestions. Do keep these suggestions coming in. And likewise to our wider audience, if you think you'd like us to cover certain areas, let us know. We can only do what you would like us to do. We need this feedback. Do let us know. I think this is a very interesting comment that you think we should broaden our horizons, James. What are your thoughts?
I agree that it is a great idea. I think that we have to look at where we are successful, and that is where we are at now, Angus. I think that in the future, though, as the channel grows, then Satledge will have the opportunity to bring in more journalists and more people to give more information. But for the time being, we are a small channel, and we have to focus on what we do well.
Absolutely. It is all about resources, and we are growing. And this next comment highlights this fact. And I think once, as we grow and grow bigger, we can fortunately get more resources, which means we can then expand the whole offering. So I think you're right with this comment. We would love to do this. It's a question of patience. Stick with us, and hopefully we will get there. So thank you for joining us, and welcome indeed. And yeah, Amrit Pal, who I know has been with us since the very beginning and has always made some lovely comments. So thank you, Amrit Pal, for your comments since our early days. And I know you've been with us. And your comment here, congratulating us. We did reach a very important milestone, I think yesterday or the day before. We did reach 20,000 subscribers, James. We got there. What a fabulous achievement that was.
That was. I noticed that yesterday and was excited to see it.
And it is really thanks to you in our audience. It is you guys who have got us there. So thank you from all of us to all of you to getting us to this massive milestone of 20,000 subscribers. And as Amrit Pal says, now the takeoff to 200,000 and maybe even 2 million. The journey takes off. There's no looking back. 20 is a very significant number in Sikh Guru Nanak mission. Well, I hope it is, because we've reached that magnificent 20,000. And as I say, it is really down to you guys out there who've been supporting us, who've been watching us, who've been showering us with these wonderful supportive comments. It is also those who've sent us these amazingly interesting educational comments, who kept James and I on the straight and narrow, who've educated us on our own little journey as two middle-aged white men trying to learn about what Sikhi is all about in our own clumsy fashion. But we seem to be getting there, James. We're getting there step by step, are we not?
We're getting there, but who are you calling middle-aged?
Indeed, I knew that would push your buttons. I'm pushing my own buttons with that one. So on that note, we will swiftly move on to the end of the show. But as we approach the end of the show, I will reiterate once again, as we hit that magic 20,000, thank you so much to each and every one of you. Do keep subscribed. Tell your friends about us. Spread the word. Let's get to that 200,000. It is possible. We will get there one day, God willing. But thank you for your support. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for watching, and thank you for all your comments. But unfortunately, we must draw things to a close there once again. Please don't forget to keep those comments coming in on a daily basis. We do appreciate them. And thank you, and also for sending in your messages directly at message@satellitetv.com. Of course, you can email us your thoughts, as you often do, on a private basis to James and myself via their email. So thank you for those. But in the meantime, thanks very much indeed. We will see you next time. It is a goodbye from me and a goodbye from James.
Stay safe, everyone.
We will see you next time.